Hi there. So my next yoga class video that I'll be putting up is going to be focused on the glutes and working the glutes. However, if your glutes are not switched on or they're not activated, you can do all the kind of glute exercises in the world, but they will not be working to their full potential. The reason I feel very passionate about this is because when I started lifting weights, I would say it took a good year to a year and a half before I actually started using my glutes the way that they are supposed to be used. And it's purely because I didn't know how to turn them on. I couldn't activate them, I didn't access them. Um, so, because, as I've mentioned many times, most of us are quad dominant, our glutes don't do the work they're supposed to. So we can do all these exercises for strengthening glutes. People say go and squat. I guarantee you, if your glutes are not activated, if your glutes are not turned on, and if you're not working them correctly, you can do all the squats in the world. It's not going to do anything to strengthen your glutes if you haven't activated those muscles, because the work and the function of that glute will be taken over by other muscles. That's what our body does. It compensates extremely well and will take the easiest course of action. For most of us, the most work our glutes get is when we sit on them. So, runners in particular, I am addressing this to you, although this really goes for everybody. I want to show you a series of glute activation exercises that you can and probably should be doing before you go out for a run. Turn those muscles on so that when you are running, you're running from the glute. Okay. Uh, these are also a series of exercises that can be incorporated really well into your strength training. I like to do these exercises any day that I'll be doing any lower body strength training, squats, deadlifts, whatever the case may be. Turn them on, get them ready to work. Now, for cyclists, yes, you're sitting on your glutes, but your glutes also function when you cycle. They function through that pedal stroke. And once again, with cyclists, most of us, most of you, tend to be quad dominant and we don't tap in to the glute. So these activation exercises will definitely help you too. Probably one of the most valuable things as a cyclist that you can do is to do single leg drills on a stationary bike. So if you're on your spinning bike and you're clipped in, just take one foot out and then just work that single leg. It's going to start teaching your muscles how to switch on during the different phases of the pedal stroke so that we're not relying so heavily on these quadriceps in the front, that we start tapping into that really strong glute muscle. So let's use the power that it has. Let's harness it and use it correctly for that locomotion. So for these glute activation exercises, you will need a band. These are ideal. So these are these loops. Again, like everything, they are color coded according to their resistance. If you do not have these loops, these bands will work fine. Just tie it in a knot and create your own loop. Okay. So your first exercise I've explained to you are banded lateral walks. So you get your loop on. And you want that to sit just above the knees. So I'm just going to move. I don't have an awful lot of room, but you're going to come down into a slightly crouched position. So from the side, that's kind of the angle you want to be at. So holding nice and tight with the core. So we're supporting that lower back, straight back, shoulders down and back. Everything is stabilized. Before you do any exercise, everything is stabilized, everything is safe. And we're going to walk laterally. So we step out of the right foot and then bring the left foot in, and so on and so forth. Now, what's important with this is that when you step out, this leg, the one that doesn't move initially, needs to stabilize and support. So this knee is pushing out. So this glute med actually works pretty hard just stabilizing that hip, even though this one is making the movements and then moving in. Again, not just bringing it in, you move, resist the pull of this band as you come in. So try and keep low, try not to pop up in between movements. So do about 10 steps to the right and then 10 steps to the left. Okay, so stabilizing, strong. And then resting. So you can repeat that again once or twice for a total of 3 sets. Your next exercise is what's often called monster walks. So again, slight bend in the knee, stabilize the body, and bring that leg out at an angle. Okay. So I'm going to do that from the side. Again, as you step out of that leg, you're wanting to stabilize with the other leg. So you're really having to work through that glute med to keep your hips stabilized and stop the knee falling in. So do 10 to 12 steps forward and then 10 to 12 steps backwards. Same motion, just in reverse. Keeping that knee pushed out and the leg stabilized. Yeah, so 10 to 12 steps forward, 10 to 12 steps backwards. Have a rest and then repeat once or twice. The next activation is a hip shift. So you will need a step or a stair and stand on, I'm just using a yoga block for demonstration purposes, standing up with your hips level. So hold on to something if you need to. And then you're going to lower that foot down, squeeze that glute, and bring your hips level again. So down and up. Make sure that you're not starting to jut these lower ribs forward and creating that tilt in the pelvis. Okay, core nice and tight, stabilizing, and focus that movement on that glute. So I'll turn around and show you from the back. So not shooting these hips really out to the side. We don't want the movement to come from the lower back. We want the movement to come from this muscle, flexing and extending. So do between 6 and 10 hip shifts with the one leg, with the other leg, rest, and repeat that again once or twice. Okay, so you'll come down to the floor for your next activation exercises. We're going to come into a resisted bridge. So resistance band again, above the knees, lying on your back, feet flat. Squeeze the glutes as you raise up off the floor, pelvis towards the ceiling, rolling up the spine, coming up to quite high on the backs of the shoulders. And really press those knees outward into the band. So you're resisting that pull of the band that wants to bring the knees in together. So really activating here on the glute med, and you're activating the glute max as you keep that pelvis pushed up high. Breathe. Hold for about a count of 10. And then exhale as you roll down the spine. Coming to rest, you can bring the knees together. Take a few moments of rest, and then you can repeat that again once or twice. The last glute activation that we'll be doing is a banded clamshell. So the band stays in exactly the same position. Your legs are bent and your feet stay together, and we move those knees away from each other. Now, the most important part about this exercise is that you want to keep these hips stacked. So you want your pelvis to be perpendicular with the ground. We don't want to try and assist the movement by rolling back with the pelvis. We want to isolate the movement to this glute med. So it's not a particularly big movement. That's not the point of this. The point is to really activate that glute med. So you can come down onto your arm. And what I like to do is just place my hand in front of my lower belly so that if I do start to roll this top hip backwards, I can feel it moving away from the arm. Draw that navel back towards the spine, as with everything looking off to the back, stabilizing this entire core and keeping it still so that the movement is focused on the outside of that buttock. So separating the top knee, lifting it up away from the bottom and down. So hold it just for a brief moment at the top of that movement and then lower with control. As with all our movements, everything is done with control. We're not just letting that top knee fall down onto the bottom knee. We're moving it back, resisting against that band, bringing it down. So you can do sort of 6, 8, 12 repetitions on one side before rolling over and performing that again on the other side. And then again, you can repeat that once or repeat it twice for a total of 3 sets. So use these exercises before you go out for a run and before you're going to be doing any lower body strength training. I always do these glute activation exercises before a day where I'm going to be doing squats or deadlifts or anything like that. And expect to feel a slight fatigue through the glutes. They're not used to working. They're not used to firing. So like everything else, it's going to take a while for that strength to build up, but it will. But we need to build those neural pathways. We need to be able to turn those muscles on so that they do function as they are supposed to, so that we don't rely on the hamstrings, on the lower back, on the quadriceps, that we use those glutes to do what they're supposed to. They are an incredibly strong and group of muscles. We want our bodies to function the way that they have evolved to function. So let's get that locomotion that comes through from the glutes. Let's get the glutes switched on. Let's get them doing the job that they're supposed to do and take all that extra work off all the other muscles that have been compensating for so long. And that has possibly resulted in pain or injury or anything like that. Enjoy it. Get your body moving. It will take a while for that strength to build, as with everything, but be patient and be consistent. Enjoy.